Folks, happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Weekend is here. Weather's warming up a little bit in Buffalo, so it's not terrible, but too much snow in November. I'm not used to it. Yeah, I know. Well, we have to start with the NFL and what happened yesterday. Now, the suspensions came down, but
all right, so let's hear them. I didn't hear it.
Pouncey, the kicker of the
he's not a kicker, but he was the kickee.
He was the kickee, yes. No, he was the kicker, and
I know.
And Myles Garrett was the kickee.
Yeah.
He got 3 games.
Okay.
Another offensive lineman, I think the one who was punching him, he got a game, and Garrett got suspended the rest of the season and postseason. He's out and he's suspended indefinitely.
Okay. So it could run into next year too.
It could. He basically has to appear before the commissioner or something like that to. Now, I saw the highlights. I didn't see it live, but I saw like the snippets on and the GIFs on Twitter. And I heard Max Kellerman from ESPN talking about Mason Rudolph should have been suspended as well, not as severely as Garrett, obviously, or the other guys, but that he did something that got Garrett going, and then Garrett went, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I didn't see that.
I didn't see it either, so I don't know what he's talking about. I was falling asleep when it was live, saw it, but I saw all the videos, and I did not see any indication of anything he said.
Right.
But even if he said the worst,
right,
it wouldn't absolve him of that. It would just get him a suspension too. Myles Garrett, he's another one like Vontaze Burfict, who has sort of gotten himself a rap sheet now, for lack of a better term.
Sure.
And that hit against Trevor Siemian that broke his leg, that was the second game of the year? First game of the year. No, second game. It was the Monday night game. That was pretty brutal. And I didn't complain about it. I was just like, all right, I know people called it a late hit. It was a late hit. But I was like, all right, things happen in football. And he's had like 3 or 4 questionable things since then and this. I don't know if Pouncey should have gotten 3 games because he literally was defending his quarterback. And I think that's kind of rough. Not saying what he did was right, but I think maybe just 1 game would have been sufficient for Pouncey because, again, when you're hitting a guy in the head with the helmet, Lyle Alzado did that once to Chris Ward of the Jets.
Right. I think I remember that.
Yeah. And that was a long time ago. And so we don't see it very often, but it is brutal. And some people brought up Marley McSorley, who did also get arrested for that. And I'm all for getting Myles Garrett arrested for this. I am. And they're deciding, Rudolph's people, if they're going to press charges. And then I think the DA is also looking at it. I'm fine with that if it crosses the line there, because this was that bad. Because if you would have hit Rudolph the wrong way, you could have killed him.
I mean, he did hit him. I mean,
no, but if you'd have hit him in the temple.
Oh, sure. Especially with the velocity that Garrett did. And I mean, Pouncey is a key offensive lineman for the Steelers, so this could basically knock these 2 teams both out of the playoffs. I mean,
something where they were defending themselves. That's where the NFL, I think, got this wrong.
Right. Yeah, I sort of agree with that. I mean, honestly, if I'm one of the offensive linemen for my quarterback, and the guy is swinging first ripping the helmet off of his head, second banging it off at full velocity off of his head, I'm going to try to kill the guy. I really am.
And the thing was, they were trying to hold back Garrett, and he has such long arms that he was able to swing over the head and hit him with the helmet. Right. So at that point, had Garrett backed off, we wouldn't be talking like the way we are now, but he didn't. And that's where he is a bad guy. Everybody knows it. And there's a certain amount of these guys in the NFL. There's no question about it. It's a shame that someone like Drew Bledsoe gets, not Drew Bledsoe, Drew Brees gets lumped in with them because he is a good guy. But he's in the same league with these guys. And I think it's just it's a horrible thing to see on national TV. The NFL did act swiftly, which is fine, but people aren't going to forget this.
No. And somebody said this morning, this will follow Garrett around for the rest of his career, and it should.
And it should.
It really should, because it's a very ugly act. Now,
and it's just like, where do we? This is not the football players are not gladiators, right? Let's make that distinction, because I hear that once in a while. Well, they're gladiators or they're soldiers, and it's like, no, they're not. They're full-grown men playing a kid's game, which is great. I love covering it. I like watching it when it's played the right way. Again, you don't learn this in Pee Wee to hit guys like that and to do things like that. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's just like, you got to get these guys out of the league.
I mean, the only comparative of football and gladiators over the last few weeks was that cat that was running at MetLife Stadium. It's sort of like the Tigers running in the Coliseum, but I don't think that cat was going to slash somebody's throat with its claws. But
yeah,
just switching to baseball here for a second, and we'll get started. Eck will be joining us. The baseball writers continue to be clueless. The American League MVP award. Now, I pretty much knew Trout was going to win. I mean,
right. I think we all did.
But it went Trout, Bregman, Marcus Semien, and DJ LeMahieu fourth.
Yeah.
And I give up. I basically said on Twitter, a New York Yankee will not win a major award ever again, because they keep going down this road of, well, it's a Yankee. They're $200 million payroll. They're a big market team, blah, 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 blah. I don't care if the guy hit 26 home runs, hit 327, I believe, and played Gold Glove defense at 3 positions, and he finishes 4th in the MVP voting. Go screw yourself, baseball writers. You're idiots.
Yeah, it's definitely wrong, but I don't think it's a Yankee thing. I know Yankee fans like to have this inferiority complex at times, but I think it's just the reputation of the player, where he doesn't have a reputation of being a great player, and I think that's wrong. I think any player on any given year should have the ability to win any award, but I think what we've seen in that sport is, when does a relative newcomer ever win that award? Like, as an example, had the Mets made the playoffs, and you didn't know at the time that you voted for the award whether they would or not, but like Pete Alonso came in 7th in MVP voting. Now, if you really look at it, he's a lot better than 7th for MVP voting. He was one of the best players in the National League, forgetting about a rookie.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think,
you know what I mean, but he has no reputation, so they're like, well, we'll give you the rookie award here, tap you on the head, but this is the big boy award now.
Well, I mean, we had a similar discussion about Cale Makar. It's like, okay, Cale Makar may be like right now the favorite for the Calder, but the way he's playing, he should be in consideration for the Norris. But we know how the Norris works. Mm-hmm. John Carlson, because he was 5th or 6th he was 6th in the voting last year. And, say they're having equal years. Well, he's got the leg up because he got votes before. And, Giordano had to pay his dues. Doughty had to pay his dues.
Yep.
I don't think and I don't like this in baseball too, where guys who deserve to win Gold Gloves don't win Gold Gloves. And then when they don't deserve it later on in the career, reputation wise, they still win it because they have the reputation.
Right. I totally agree with that. I don't know what started that, but I'm clearly not in favor of it. I'll vote for Cale Makar for the Norris if he's, still having that kind of year
like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. Like I said, Eck will be joining us momentarily. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, November 15th, 2019.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology. The sun's out. It's 50-something degrees. That's nice.
Shut up. And I'm Michael Lucello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, let's start with some games from last night. We'll start with the one that I was at. the Carolina Hurricanes and the Buffalo Sabres. It ended up being a 5-4 overtime victory for the Hurricanes. Sabres came back in this game. They were down 3-1. They came back, tied at 3-3. The Hurricanes got a goal late in the third period on a power play that incensed the crowd at KeyBank Center. Then the Sabres tied it up with less than a minute to go in regulation. A Jeff Skinner shot that was deflected by Johan Larsson. They go to overtime, and the perception was that Svechnikov should have been called for a penalty against Ristolainen. I thought it was basically Ristolainen deserved a penalty, and Svechnikov, the referee saw it the same. The fans obviously didn't. They come down a couple of moments later, and after the penalties were called, coincidental minors, and Dougie Hamilton scores the winner. Now that is, I believe, 7 of the last 8. Sabres are 1-6-1, and there are 1-5-2 in their last 8, falling behind dramatically in the Atlantic Division. And Russ, like I said at the beginning of the year, I think they're improved. I don't think they're a playoff team, and they've proved that the last 8 games.
Yeah, I was watching that game, and a couple of things struck me after the game. Though, did I see a stat that the Sabres haven't beaten the Canes in like 10 games or something?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but
that's been going on for a while.
Yeah, so that's been going on for a while. This is definitely one they should have had. The fact that it took Curtis Lazar, who, look, I loved him. I've interviewed him. He's a great guy. He's, a decent fill-in player. He had a nice goal. If that spark didn't get you to win that game, nothing was going to, because they were a dead team before he scored that goal. They were dead. They were absolutely dead in the water. And
the spark of getting the tying goal late in the third. I mean, all the momentum emotionally was there, but Carolina just continued to persevere. Now, to this morning, I know we were talking about him. I don't know if it was off air or on one of the shows recently. The Sabres called up Rasmus Asplund.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
No, we talked about it off air.
Yeah, because I want to talk about that though for a second, because that's something I've been tracking this morning actually, and
the reason they called him up is because Marcus Johansson is out. I think I saw him walking in the press box yesterday, and they played Evan Rodriguez as their number 2 center. And I'm sorry,
he's not.
He's not. He's a third or fourth line at best, and you can't. Asplund. I don't know where he grades out, but he's having an okay year with Rochester. Give your kids a chance.
Yep.
Well, there might be, I don't know, talking to somebody up there and following up on a couple leads I got. There might be this particular Rasmus Asplund call up, which happened, I think. When did the last one happen? Was it today even?
What's that?
Was he called up again today, or was it?
No, he was called. This is the first time he's been called.
Okay, this is the first time he's been called up. Yeah.
So now they have three Rasmus.
I know. Yeah. Okay, so this one, a couple people there I think is pointing towards a move that the Sabres are working on.
Well, I was at the game yesterday, and there were 23 scouts.
Yeah.
A lot of regulars, guys that you see in Buffalo and Toronto all the time, but 23 is a little heavy for a Thursday night in early November. And I got the feeling when Marco Scandella was inserted in the lineup yesterday, coming off the injured list, that it smacked to me of a showcase. Now, I talked to somebody else, and they said, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, they've got a lot of defensemen, and I know that they're looking for forward help. So
yeah, they need you got to remember that, you have a coach there. Whenever you have a new coach, this is something that I've been learned in this rumor trade, Whenever you have a new coach, you have a tendency to, American Thanksgiving is used for a lot of reasons, right? It's used for it's used in a lot of different ways. It's used like, okay, if we're not in the playoffs by American Thanksgiving, but that has actually been proven not to be the case in the last few years as much, nearly as often. And last year, in fact, of course, everybody's the famous, St. Louis Blues in last place in January, right? So anything's possible. But with new coaches, I've noticed that a new coach, especially an experienced new coach like Kruger, like the inexperienced new coaches will force changes right away. The experienced new coaches will come in and they'll leave the team as it is, and they'll say, "Give me through November to see what I got here, see what I'm dealing with." Because you can't really tell in the preseason, you can't really tell by interviewing them. You have to play some games. You have to play some regular season games,
right?
And But Kruger's a very specific kind of coach who likes specific kind of players, and so it's inevitable that the Sabres are going to make trades. And he's going, who that's going to be. Is it Scandella? Is it who? We don't know yet, but I think that there's a big push towards he now has seen his team in sort of all of its glory. We saw it play really well,
warts and all.
Yeah, he saw it play really well for a while, and now he's seen it play really poorly. And he now knows what he has. He knows that's a good coach. 2 months, that's enough time to know what he's got and what he needs. So I wouldn't be surprised at all, in the cities that have brand new coaches this year, and Buffalo is especially one of them because, I have this factor that I do, and I should post it again because I do it every year for fun. That's called the desperation factor. Mm-hmm. And, and it takes all these different things into account. And one of them is, Buffalo is a city that's dying, that wants a team to make the playoffs. This is that plays into it. How long you haven't been in the playoffs plays into it,
Well, to that point, Ak, and I was a little taken aback. I mean, Carolina, they're a touchstone team in Buffalo because they lost to Carolina in 06.
And that still haunts them kind of.
Right. They're not well liked. And as a Thursday night, it wasn't a bad weather night. And I would say there were about 11,000 fans. They were loud fans. They were boisterous. But the feeling here,
which is another reason that that something's got to happen.
Right. The feeling here is that nobody believed the good start. Nobody had confidence that it was for real.
I don't know. Nobody.
Oh no.
Fan-wise.
What's that?
You mean fan-wise?
Fan-wise, yes, fan-wise.
You got to understand them being gun shy for sure.
Oh no,
But fans are quick to believe things.
I was a season ticket holder of this team. I had friends who wanted to go to the games. They stopped wanting to go to the games. That's why I'm not a season ticket holder any longer. Yeah. It's completely understandable, and they're basically going to say, "Show me," and until the team shows them, they're not going to believe, and that's the case. Now. I grant your point regarding Kruger. The thing is that Kruger's not getting fired.
Oh no,
Botterill's not getting fired.
No,
the first move here is going to be players. They have a lot of unrestricted free agents.
Yeah,
this is the same team with the exception of Jason Pominville, and they added VC and Johansson and Miller and Yokoharu. So they added to a team. They added depth to that team. But right now, Johansson's out of the lineup. VC has no goals. Colin Miller was a healthy scratch, and Yokoharu scored the tying goal yesterday. So right now, they're basically the team that they were at the end of last year, where it's Reinhardt, Skinner, Olofsson, and Eichel scoring the goals, and that's their offense. They don't have enough.
Yeah, no, they don't, and. And it makes all the sense in the world. Kruger is definitely not going anywhere. So
no,
they're going to have to make. Good.
Mandela on his own is not garnishing you a lot. He's a bottom pairing defenseman who can play 15 minutes.
I think their strength is still coming out of dealing a defenseman. I still think that's where they have to come. And the obvious Ritzalainen thing. It seems like Ritzalainen's happy there now.
Yeah, I think the reason I bring up Scandella, Russ, is because they're up against the cap, and Bogosian apparently is close. I'm saying, they may get a draft pick for Scandella because he's a veteran bottom pairing guy, but they have to clear the cap space to add someone. Sure. I know that the name around Buffalo over the last couple of years, and I think you reported it in rumors, has been Tyler Toffoli. They've always been interested in Toffoli. Yeah. It's never come to fruition. And with him getting healthy scratched in LA, maybe that's a fit here. But the thing is that he's making close to $4 million, I believe. And they can't fit him under the cap unless they trade somebody out. So it might be two deals, and it might be a situation where they have to clear Scandella to bring in Toffoli.
Well, Athanasiou is one guy they're looking at for sure, and that's a guy who I wrote about today when Buffalo is one of the 4 teams I put on there. That
cost a lot more than Scandella.
Yeah, it will. But they have some prospects. From what I was told, they have some players.
But I'm going to caution this.
Okay.
As much as I like Athanasiou, you already brought in Johansson. You're bringing in similar type players, and these aren't guys that are guaranteed 65-point guys. They're not. Neither one of them are.
Yeah.
And so
I think they're different. I think Athanasia.
they're not that much different. Athanasia is faster, but not much.
He more plays into. I mean, I think what's been lacking in Buffalo for a really long time. Talking to my friends up there, who and obviously Mike, this very well too, and talking to Garth, talking to all the different people who've come up and watched that team play on a regular basis. Is they haven't had a really besides Eichel, who's no question a great player. They don't have a breakout, exciting type player. They since maybe even Danny Briere. You have to go back a ways before that since they've had a player who was just who had the breakaway speed and the, just the dramatic play of an Athanasiou. That what Athanasiou can do is that he has that in him, and
right.
Whether or not and in Detroit, the style they play in Detroit, which is not too dissimilar from the style they play in Toronto, because obviously Detroit's coach grew up with Babcock, is very, and that's one of the reasons Detroit fans are dying to get a coach change. I mean, that you see it all the time, right? Is holding Athanasiou back, where I think Kruger would let him go. I think Kruger would let him fly, and because the European style that Kruger's used to coaching is much more into letting the talent like that be the talent.
It's a question of whether Athanasiou, because if I'm wrong, I know he's played both center and wing.
He's a winger.
He's a winger. That's it. The crying need for the Sabres is a number 2 center, and that's been a crying need since they traded Ryan O'Reilly, and they don't have it. And there's nobody, unless you're willing to wait 2 years. I mean, Casey Middlestat now is, I think he had a point last night, but he has 1 point in his last 8 games. I got in a little bit of an argument on the radio yesterday with Mike Harrington of the Buffalo News because I said maybe they should consider sending him down, and Harrington said no, he's learning up in the NHL and he's doing okay. But the thing is, they really, they're at a point right now where they can't have somebody learning on the job as a number 2 center. They need somebody who can be effective as a number 2 center. And unless you're going to wait for Middlestat for another year or Dylan Cousins for 2 years, I don't think going out and getting Athanasiou, who isn't a good center, as Funky Cold Zadina says in the chat, that helps them. Great. If he's a winger, they've already got Reinhart and Skinner and Olsen. Right. They need a number 2 center.
Yeah, I think they would see him as a center. Very much in the mode of Danny Briere. That's that's the kind of player that I think.
I'm telling you, I've seen him play a fair amount. I think that's a stretch. But I'm also going to say, if you're saying that they haven't had a guy with breakaway speed or whatever, Maxim Afinogenov was that guy.
And McGillney before him. But
right. Those are and they've had that history for sure. Afinogenov, McGillney, Briere. That has been that
long ago.
The problem was, Russ, that Afinogenov loved.
Afinogenov was a while ago.
Look it up, 2007.
Afinogenov.
Yeah, but he wasn't Afinogenov in 2007.
Afinogenov loved to skate around the offensive zone and never shot the puck. That was his problem.
Yeah. He was at his best. We're talking still right around 2000. I mean,
no. In 06-07, he still had 61 points. Then he fell off.
No, but I mean, but he wasn't the okay. But I mean,
he had a good year.
He was part of those 2 conference final teams. Before that,
yeah, he was, but he wasn't. I mean, okay, all right. I'll yield. I've been watching too much of the congressional hearings. I'll yield. Yeah, but I think that
why waste your time?
No, it's you can't turn away from track.
Yeah, it's like a train wreck.
No aggression, but I think that
But see, this is the problem. Where do you get a number 2 center right now? You probably don't. And at the deadline, you're getting rental centers. They don't need a rental. They need a guy. Yeah. And I don't know who's going to be in free agency. I mean, Taylor Hall's the big name in free agency. He's not a center. He's a winger. They need a number 2 center behind to take a little bit of the heat off of Eichel. And they're probably thinking that it's going to be internal, that they're going to find that guy. But that's going to be a couple years. That's going to, Dylan Cousins is 8 years old.
I'll tell you a better trade, and it would cost you less, and you might get that number 2 center out of it. Try for Nolan Patrick, because something's going on with him and the Flyers, because now he's not skating again. We don't hear any reports about his headaches anymore. So it's kind of like I'm beginning to wonder whether the coach wants him at all.
I don't know.
I am beginning to wonder that, because, he had been skating all along. I mean, we're already into November.
Yeah, but this is the way that head injuries work. It's like the Flyers are doing a good job at shielding him from everybody, I think. And I think
too good a job because now nobody knows what the deal is.
Well, yeah, and I think that's specific because, there's history there. There's precedent there with the Flyers and other star players with concussions. So I think that there's a issue there that they're going to treat this thing with kick gloves, and I think they're going to shut him down for the year. I honestly think that's what they're going to do.
It looks like he's going on LTIR now.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to shut him down for the year because he's still very young.
All right, so I guess he still is battling that problem. I didn't know if he really was or he wasn't anymore.
No, I think he definitely is.
Rob in the chat said, Tyler Johnson for Tampa from Tampa. That might be a possibility because he's locked in on a contract. Yeah. Tampa is going to have to sign a couple people next year, like Sergachev, and
at least he's a real center.
He's a real center. He's a veteran enough that he would fit into that role. That he's not big, and I'm sure they would prefer a big. I mean, I don't think you want to put Cousins or Middlestead in there at a young age when they're not ready. So then they're gonna probably have to go outside the organization to get that to work. But and Esmir says Kyle Turris, not a chance in hell.
Yeah,
no way.
No, they won't get him.
I mean, yeah. It was an interesting night last night, though, at some of the games. I know you talked about that game as well.
How much did you watch the Rangers Tampa? Because I
watched until it was like 4 or 5 goals in.
Yeah,
but I knew, and this is something David Quinn probably doesn't know. I knew if you're going to bring in Lundqvist already with a game at 4-0, it's the worst possible time to bring in Lundqvist.
Yeah, that's not the way.
That's not the way to bring him in because he was not going to offer you anything, and he didn't.
Yeah, let Georgiev suck up the loss instead of bringing in a 38-year-old goaltender.
If it was a game where it's 1 goal, 2 goals, and you didn't like what you saw, even 3, once it was 4, even Lundqvist had that look like, why am I in this game?
I remember talking to Marty Biron about Lundqvist having when he was the backup, and talking about at the time he was the backup. This is after he was there, and after he'd retired and everything like that. And he called Lundqvist like the most likely goalie to have to I'm trying to think exactly how he said it, but he's like basically he said he was like a sports car, and that he would if something small breaks on him, he's in trouble, and also, he has to have everything right. And if everything's right, he's a crazy, crazy high-tuned machine. But if it's not right, and part of that right is like the daily preparation for the game and everything that goes into it for Lundqvist is like he has like his thing he does, and if you break that, which is you're going to do obviously when you bring him in halfway through a game where he's not expecting to play at all, that's you're not going to get anything from it. I mean, I do think I kind of admire what the what the Vegas Golden Knights have done, where they don't even put Fleury on the bench. Like if you're gonna not play the starter, bring up your third string guy, and if you have to make a change, the second string guy's not doing well. I kind of like that system because it makes sense to me. It's like that. If you're really going to break you don't want to throw your starting goalie into a game that doesn't matter anymore because you can't win it because you're so far behind. Why risk the injury? Why risk him giving up a lot of goals or whatever? It's a good chance to give some it's a good chance to throw a bone to your third string goalie too. Like get him in a game, get him some NHL.
Yes, I agree. I want to give you this quote, Eck, because this is what made me think. And apparently it's not official. Flyers haven't put Patrick on LTIR. Maybe they're thinking about it. But this is the quote that Jordan Hall got from Vigneault yesterday. Mm-hmm. Vigneault said he hasn't had a conversation with head trainer Jim McCrossin in a little while about Patrick. Like that to me sounds like a coach that has factored him out completely.
Or a coach who has has created deniability, has created a situation where he's like, don't tell me about, I don't want to have to answer questions because I don't want to be put in that spot. If he's not ready, he's not going to be here. There are coaches who like that, the plausible deniability type thing,
Yeah, but when that looks bad? It looks bad when someone like Darren Dreger goes on national TV and says he's not even close.
Yeah, and I think I would trust Dreger because of his Canadian connections, and all that stuff in that situation.
Right, but now you're not hearing anything from the club, anything from the coach, and now you're hearing it from the outside. To me, that's bad.
It does. But I think a lot of it is to keep the pressure off of Patrick, actually.
Okay.
Because if you've got a head injury and you can't do anything about it, the last thing you want people to do is have to ask their questions and stress and all that stuff. I think that it would be good. The best answer on this whole thing is to shut him down completely for the year and just say, okay, he's a young kid still, really young. Yeah. And this is and there's no point. We're going to shut him down for a year and bring him in next year, and it'll be like adding a great free agent or whatever. Just have, you can play this any way you want to.
Right.
But as long as they don't do that, that means that someone is saying that, or Patrick's not letting him do that. Patrick might be saying, I'm going to play,
Yeah.
Because that takes Nolan Patrick to kind of agree to that, because with a head injury, no one knows when it's going to get better. And you literally have to keep checking every couple of weeks. But if I'm Nolan Patrick's friend, I'm saying to him, listen, with a head injury, the one thing we do know is that concussions gotten closer together are a problem. So you come back in,
they're telling us it's migraines. They never said it was a concussion. So now that's the other part of this. Actually,
depends where. They're telling us it's migraines. The not concussion thing, while it may be 100% the case, there's a lot of people I've talked to that say that the Flyers and concussions, they don't like to put things in concussions because of the history.
Right, but what I'm basically saying is, because of the way this is all being handled, they have created extra dialogue.
Right,
they
have, and they're probably, in knowing them, they're going to probably come up with some sort of decision. They probably will, at some point, shut him down. I would think. No, because Comcast hates extra dialogue, as you know, they do, and they're in that. Yet at the same time, Vigneault is going to want this, just to say, leave the kid alone for now.
Now, one of the other games last night that got attention because McDavid and Draisaitl went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs was Colorado and Edmonton. McDavid had 3 goals and 3 assists. Draisaitl had 5 assists.
Yeah,
but this is the thing that I think we have to talk about. Colorado's goaltending situation, which Russ, you and I have said is an area of concern.
It is.
I talked to somebody yesterday at the Sabres game. Grubauer is out injured. Right. Now, I believe Frank Kuz is injured. The goaltending that they had last night, Werner is an SHL goaltender who they considered their 4th string goalie in the system. He's up. And he got pulled, and Antoine Bibeau, the ex-Leaf and Shark, was the backup yesterday. He got in there. I mean, this is a team that I think has the possibility of going deep in the playoffs. But I think they're going to have to add a goalie, and not because Grubauer, not because.
No, I think they're going to have to add one too now, because I saw that game where Francouz got freight trained, and he's probably dealing with a concussion because he hit the crossbar.
Right.
Or the sidebar. So now they do need a goalie. There's no question.
Yeah, they do. And they had the money to do it. And
the young assets to do it. And I don't know why I keep going back to it, but Craig Anderson played a long time in Colorado. That would make a whole lot of sense, because they could take on that contract. And I'm sure Ottawa might be, because Anders Nielsen has taken over as the number 1 in Ottawa. So I would think that Craig Anderson might make sense for Colorado as either, a stopgap number 1 or as a veteran backup who can play sizable games if Grubauer needs to rest or needs to heal.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I mean, that's why I didn't give a lot of credence to McDavid's great game, because Werner's never played in the NHL. This is he just got thrown in there.
Well, they went 4 for 6 on the power play. The Oilers did. Again, the power play is crazy.
No, and it should be. I mean,
Draisaitl at this point, it should be, but it isn't usually in situations like this.
Yeah,
what I mean? When you have that much talent, power plays tend to have issues. I mean, look at Pittsburgh. Washington's power play 18th in the NHL.
Toronto's 23rd.
How about Toronto right now? There you go.
Yeah, I mean, so it's tough to get a ton of talent going. And I think the reason for that, I think there's a good reason for that. I was thinking about this the other day. Why do good teams have bad power play sometimes? And I think the reason is they're good teams is because of how they attack. When you watch the Capitals the other night, they really impressed me, by the way. I haven't gotten to talk to you since then. Just watching them, they're definitely where they were when they won the Stanley Cup.
No
they're playing like that. their quickness in the transition, but their ability to like the one play that kind of like exemplified them the most was when Oshie like steals the puck right inside the blue line when he puts a stick on the ice and turns it around. I think they scored off that. But even if they didn't, that was so Capitals. Like that's what the Capitals do. The Capitals are incredibly good at countering you closer to your net than any other team. Like there's a lot of teams that counter in the mid in the neutral zone, but the Caps will counter you really close. And that is not a play that happens when you're on the power play. Like the weird thing about on a power play, teams just ice it. So when you're out there 5-on-5, you've got to carry the puck or make a pass through there. You've got to do something there, right? And I think that's the Capital strength is picking off those plays and turning you back, like and having odd man rushes because you set a pass up this way and now you're caught going back the other way, and the Caps have 3-on-2 or 4-on-2. Where on the power play, the Caps set up. They don't get the advantage of that speed and because once you're set up, you're standing still mostly. It's the speed, the transition, the counterattack. I mean, this is what the Penguins. This is why the Penguins counterattack has been the Penguins' game. That's when the Penguins are at their best. They're the best counterattack team I've ever seen. And this was the key to like the LA Kings when they were at their best. The same kind of thing. I've always said like the ability to pick off pucks in the other team's zone and the ability to get the puck out without being picked up in your zone are like two major things. And that's, that how good your breakouts are. Good teams always have incredible breakouts and are great at breaking up the other team's breakouts.
Russ, I almost get the feeling though that the reason the Capitals are so on right now is because I think they realize that there's a window here and this is going to be the last chance that this group has to win because Backstrom's a UFA and Holtby's a UFA. And
we don't know what Ovechkin has said. Like, we don't know like what's going on behind.
Well, he's still got another year, but
like Russ brings up has this theory, and I kind of subscribe to it that
he wins another cup. He's on a plane to
he wins another cup. He's gone.
Yeah, I think if he wins another cup, he is gone because there's nothing else for him to play here, and there's so much to be gained by him returning to Russia.
Definitely,
personally for him, and to do it before he's been completely out of it too. Like go over there and dominate the KHL for a couple of years would be really outstanding for him. And because he's going to eventually run the Russian hockey program. This is what you're looking at. You're looking at he's going to take
what he wants. The two things that the Capitals do that nobody else in the East really does is they can intimidate you with physical play, and that's included, but they also have strong defensive forwards like Oshie and Carlson on the power play. The puck never bounces over his stick. You never have to worry about it going the other way.
He's by far the best defenseman in the NHL right now. And I mean, and we look at the points and stuff like that for sure. It's easy to sit there and say that, but it's beyond points. It's like defensively, he really feels like Pronger at his best in some ways. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Not quite.
Yeah, not
as physical as Pronger and not as intimidating as Pronger, but how Pronger just had such a command for the ice. Like when he had the puck, he was Chris Pronger. That's what Carlson has right now.
Well, something else that the Capitals did, and they helped keep Joel Farabee stapled to the bench. I want to talk about that because this was a game where if you're wondering why I always say, hey, sometimes these guys that are in between, it's better to leave them in the AHL. This is the perfect example. He had 2 or 3 giveaways that game. Yep. His ice time the last 3 games has gone from 19 minutes to 16 minutes to 14 minutes to 11:50. So that's starting to go down. He got 4 points in 12 games. He's got more takeaways than giveaways.
Yep.
There's a point where Alain Vigneault is going to put him out there, but if he sees 2 or 3 more of these games, then all of a sudden Joel Farabee's not in the position of developing anymore.
Funny, Russ, it's an outstanding point because I had the same exact discussion 2 nights ago with a guy who I won't want to say his name, but he was on Scotty Bowman's staff a couple times, like he was with Scotty Bowman, and we were talking about Farabee, because he really likes him, we
all do.
Likes Frost too. Everybody they're both good players, right? Yeah. But he said the reason Bowman would never play a guy who was that young on the first line is because the first line always gets the best checkers on the other team.
Right.
And, so you put a guy like, it's not that Farabee's not a first line player eventually, because he is, but why would you put him up against the best defensive players the other team has?
Ovechkin, why would you do that?
Yeah. Why would you, it makes no sense because you're setting yourself up for an absolute disaster with him being on the first line. And with the Flyers actually having like 2 first lines pretty much. I mean, there's really no Like, is Couturier's line the best line, or is Giroux's line the best line? It really is. I mean, when they had Couturier and Drew together, they had a definite first line, but separating them out, they don't. But that's a great point. And Farabee, who really looks good against teams that don't have a great checking line,
right?
But teams that aren't geared for the playoffs, like the Caps are geared for the playoffs.
Oh, the Caps are geared for a long run.
Yeah, they're geared for the playoffs, so they have it. They know how to check, and this is a team that checked, the Vegas Knights when no one else could check them, right? In the same that year, that's clearly what you saw, and I was impressed. The Flyers took it to overtime. I'll give you that. I mean, that was like
the one thing I did bring up, though, Ek, while that was a positive, their 6 regulation wins is not a positive.
Yeah, no, it's not a positive. But getting the points. I mean, it's better not to get points than to get points in the past. They were points. So we'll give them that. But you're right, 6 regulation wins.
And you know what happens if you continue to hemorrhage points against Eastern teams? It's going to be a problem in the end.
And if you want to go down that road, because it's very similar. The Leafs have 9 wins. 6 of them are in regulation, and the 6 wins are against the bottom 6 teams in the NHL. That's a statement of how badly they're playing right.
Did they beat Boston
in overtime?
Right, in overtime. Right now, regulation got you.
Minnesota, San Jose, LA, Detroit, Columbus, and there was one other. But I mean,
here's the deal. Like Boomer Gordon the other day on SiriusXM said that 27% of the games so far this season have gone past regulation.
Crazy.
And it was 20% last year.
You can feel that. You can just sense it just because you're watching the games. Every game
is a bad strategy if you aren't like the Washington Capitals or a top team, because now it looks like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, where 92, really like 93 points could have gotten you in the playoffs in recent years. Now it looks like more like 98 to 100.
Nah, I'd say 95 at least.
It's funny because it's, some will argue that that's parity, that the teams are close. Some will argue that it's causing parity, which I think is what's actually happening. Because I think what's happening is when teams look at the final season, in the week of the regular season, and they're 2 points out of the playoffs, like Montreal last year. Like a good example, like that Montreal team is going to go into this year getting every point they can. So they're going to decide that they're in. If they're in a tie game, even in the first month of the season.
Can we at least agree, and we've seen this in the Flyers and everybody else, that if there's 2 minutes left in the game and it's tied, the game is pretty much going to overtime unless there's a bad turnover. And then in the 3-on-3, unless there's a bad turnover or a bad line change, nobody's being aggressive. Can we agree on that?
Oh, yeah. And the fact the Flyers aren't playing Chris Stewart in any of these games.
Right.
Which is like the whole point of like, okay, the argument they kept making, he's such a great, and they're losing shootouts by like 1 goal.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of points that if you're going to have Chris Stewart, use him, have him on the table for this. I mean, he's not going to get you points any other way.
No.
This way he's going to get you a point. Go for it. I mean, you got young enough players that you can afford to play like, I don't know, you can afford to put him on the 4th line.
Yeah.
And not even play him, like double shift Giroux on the 4th line, but just have Stewart ready to go. Like have him ready to go.
Right.
This is what you need him for. I want to bring up one thing too. Really quickly on the Oilers, real fast, just move back, and that is the fact that Draisaitl and McDavid had 11 combined points last night, which was pretty unbelievable. But besides that,
that illustrates the problem with that team is that it's all them, and when they don't score, they don't win.
That's a problem. Like until you have 2 guys who are 10 points ahead of everybody else in the NHL. Like at some point, it's not an issue.
Okay, we'll see. We'll
see. And both of them are young. We're not talking about guys in their 30s. We're talking about 2 young players still, and this may affect them when they get to their 30s of not having as much left. I agree with you, but it's been short.
I think it's going to affect them in January when they're playing 25 minutes a night and they're spent.
But I think the thinking here is from Tippett, and I agree with this thinking, is that we've seen the NHL, the beginning of the season seems to matter more than anything else because it seems like how you set up this thing, because it just gets tighter.
No, that's true.
As tight as it is already with 27% of games going, that number is going to be 42%, 4 months from now or 2 months from now. You have to jump out ahead. You have to get out of the gate strong. You have to. If you don't get out of the gate strong, you're screwed. There's no question.
I'll grant you that.
They're doing that. So Edmonton is getting to the point where they are a playoff team. Like no matter how you slice it, like they are really putting. I mean, if they go through the end of November and are still in first place in that division, they're a playoff team. No, I don't think any team that's been in first place at the end of November has missed the playoffs in the last several years. I mean, that's like.
I think the chances are very good. I won't say it's definite.
Yeah.
I mean, and right now the thing I'm trying to say is Draisaitl has 41 points. McDavid has 41 points in 21 games. Okay, so Draisaitl has a 1.95 goal points per game. We haven't seen anybody in November close to 2 points a game in forever, right?
No,
so
let's just say this: the Oilers have won 13 games, 12 in regulation. They have 28 points, and they're 6 points out. They're 6 points out of being out of the playoffs. So
yeah, but look, that's a serious number of games in regulation. First of all,
I know. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that they haven't carved out this 10, 12 point.
Yeah, but you're the same one who argues that 6 points is like but teams will never make that up. You know, like this is like
6 takes a little while. It does.
There's 6 points, but they also are 4 spots out of not making the playoffs, and as far as positions go. So look at that. I mean, they basically have they could fall to.
I think the only way you guys can settle this is by making a bet.
We've already made tons of bets.
He owes me like a dozen cookies.
I do owe him like a dozen cookies. I'm going to go all or nothing though on the Oilers finishing in first place. How about that? Because I'm happy about this pick, just like I'm not so happy about the one I picked. Blackhawks finishing in first place, but that's okay.
Let me go back.
I'm going to finish this thought on this, guys, and then we'll. I promise you. Draisaitl has 41 points. McDavid has 37 points. The next closest person in the NHL is David Pastrnak, who is having a hell of a year. But has 31 points. So Draisaitl is 10 points ahead of Pastrnak. Okay, so Draisaitl is, already, in November, 10 points ahead of the, you take McDavid out of the equation because McDavid and he play together. He's 10 points ahead of the next viable competitor. And then after that, it drops off pretty quickly too. So, like Barkov, if you go to the number 10 position, I think you're looking at a guy with half the points of Draisaitl. Right.
Okay.
That's nuts. I mean, that's just.
Can I give you a stat here?
Please.
Draisaitl's got 41 points. McDavid's got 37 points. The next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players don't total the amount of.
Oh, I know. No, you're absolutely right. And that would be a bigger issue with me. I would agree with you if you were saying that Draisaitl had even 31 points, which would still make him the number 1 leading scorer in the league.
I'll give you a bigger.
McDavid had 27, but they have 41 and 37.
Okay,
that's making up for a lot of this.
The point is they're doing it by themselves.
I'll give you a bigger issue. Like we talk about, well, how are the Penguins going to survive without Crosby or without Malkin? And they've done it already partially this year. Could the Oilers do it even for a week without either one of them? The answer is no.
No. The answer is no right now. Although the question you can make about that is, at what point do those younger players, and there's some good players in there, they're not putting up big numbers, but they're good players in there. At what point does all this winning start to help those younger players?
I'll tell you what.
And that's Tippett's strategy.
Well, it's a weird strategy because I'm telling you, it's only when Tippett decides that guy is going to play good enough defense for him to bring him up instead of bringing up a guy who could play really good offense and just haven't played good enough defense. Because Tippett gets a little crazy about that.
And Tippett, they are playing non-Tippett like hockey. This is
they have 18 players playing Tippett like hockey.
Right.
That's what's happening. They've got 2 that aren't,
and they still suck defensively. That's the problem, Mac.
Right.
They don't have enough guys contributing.
Their goalies though are in the top 10, both of them. Okay. I mean, they don't suck defensively.
They're terrible.
They're not good defensively.
They're not a good defensive team, but their goalies are making up for it. So they're not giving that many goals.
Is that sustainable? Do you expect Mikko Koskinen and Mike Smith to save their bacon? I don't.
All right, so let me ask this basic question.
We can't have this fight every day, but I'm with you on this. I'm totally with you. Go ahead.
So Tyler Benson last year had 66 points in 68 games in the AHL. He's a point a game again this year in the AHL.
Yeah.
Why isn't he with the Edmonton Oilers? Dave Tippett. That's why.
Yeah, because he's not ready defensively.
Because they'd rather play Gaetan Haas. That's
correct.
Right.
And also just not. And you know what? He isn't happy with the Oilers right now. That's the bottom line. Like there might come a point.
There may be a time where he does have to be though.
Yeah, they're either, and then we can call that argument. But right now, there's no reason to rush him up here because there's no point.
Let me just go back to something we talked about.
I just want to say, Mike, the Hindenburg did look good in pictures before it took off. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, let me break out the marshmallows so we can have.
Oh man, I should run for mayor of Edmonton.
Let's drive to Lakehurst, New Jersey, and make some s'mores.
Sure.
With some burning German bodies in there.
No, see now, why did you go there?
What the hell was that about?
Well, he said the Hindenburg.
Yeah, Mike's opinions do not reflect the opinions of that of HockeyBuzz.com.
Absolutely not. I didn't go there.
Or Russ Cohen or Sportsology.com or anybody in the tri-state area here. Anyway, continue.
The big factor in the Athena CU trade speculation is the fact that he's a restricted free agent with arbitration rights.
And they don't want to deal with him.
And they don't want to deal with him because Darren Ferris is a pain in the butt. He's an agent.
I don't think Yzerman thinks he's really good. Like that's the other thing I'll throw out there too. Like I get from talking to people, and I know Funky in the chat room and other people in the chat room, and we have a chat room, guys. If you're on, it's really fun. Jump in there and on YouTube. But I think that the rest of those guys, there's definitely. Yzerman sees something in him that he doesn't like.
Well, see, the thing is they've got two guys in the same situation, RFA with arbitration rights in Athena CU and Mantha, and based on what he's seeing out of Mantha now, and he knows Mantha is going to be a 30 to 35 goal scorer. Maybe he still has some motivational problems, but he's got high-end talent. I think he wants to pay one of them. I don't think he wants to pay both of them, and that's why I think Athena CU will be traded, but I don't know if he's going to get the package that he thinks that he's going to get for him. That's the thing.
Yeah. No, you're probably right. I don't think he is either, but I think that this is the time to do it. Like he's got the value right now.
He's going to package it with something else. If there's a prospect or so he doesn't like, if he doesn't love Michael Rasmussen and somebody else does, then you can get a lot more. He may have to do something like that, but I think the reason Yzerman doesn't love Athanasiou is because he's not strong defensively. He doesn't really have any pushback in him. And Yzerman obviously wants a little of that because, like, even a guy like Tyler Johnson, being as small as he does that.
Now,
yeah, that's very true.
Now,
Can I say something here about this? Good. I think that this man here is absolutely beautiful. There's no question about it that this is one of the most attractive men in hockey. And this look of Kyle Dubas is so frigging Toronto. Like this is such the hipster young guy. Don't you think? Come on now. This is like
a young guy. So what?
He's a young guy. Look at the jacket he's wearing. Look at the shirt he's wearing.
He looks more like an author than I do.
He does. He looks like he should be reading at Beckers or whatever the store is up in Canada.
Yeah.
Or talking to you about like string theory. Like I want to hear him talking to me about string theory. I mean, I love Dubas. He's a good guy. We were in the press box. He said hi the other day. All cool. But this look like this is just like, has there ever been a hipper looking GM and like so Toronto? Like not in all the good ways. There's a lot of really good looking people in Toronto.
I don't think he's Toronto. I just think he's a young guy, and that's there's
a lot of good looking people in Toronto. A lot of good looking business people in Toronto.
Well, I'm in Toronto all the time, so there you go.
Yeah, no, I know.
Mike, like that shirt he got at the Canadian version of Old Navy. Like I get what X's saying.
Yeah, it's like it's not really. Is it a jacket or is it like a sweater? Like he's wearing. It's hard to tell.
I think it's a sweater. But who cares about that?
You know what it is? I'll tell you what.
I think it's important, Mike. I do. I think it's important for a lot of reasons.
It is important. It's a sweaty because it's a cross between a sweater and a hoodie.
It is. It's one of those, which again is crazy hipster. And
a sweaty, yeah.
He looks like Rachel Maddox, somebody said.
No. He's not talking impeachment, as Mir.
That is actually pretty funny. All right, I'll give you that. But no, I'm impressed. That was well done. All right. But I just had to bring that up for a second. We'll go back to our regularly scheduled program as we were already in progress.
Yes.
All right. But continuing on here. I just like that picture.
I was gonna say, can we talk about the quietest 5-game winning streak in possibly the history of the NHL?
And the San Jose Sharks,
because they dug themselves such a cavernous hole that after a 5-game winning streak, they're still 4 points behind the wild card.
No, but that's great. I mean,
you just gave Edmonton all kinds of hell for being 6 points ahead. So I'm going to say that
I've been ripping everybody.
Catch up and best Edmonton.
No, but I've been ripping everybody because nobody has really wanted to cover this, and they've been winning game after game after game. And if you remember, I think I said after 2 or 3 of these, if they just figure out with the defenseman they have to shield the goalies a little better, that will give Martin Jones a little more confidence.
Yeah.
And that's probably what they're doing. I haven't seen a couple of games on this win streak, but that's probably helping a lot.
No, well, let's look at who they won in this streak. Okay, they beat Chicago. It started with Chicago back on Tuesday, November 5th. They go into and that game is at home again at home. So they won the first 3 games at home at least.
Well, they have a big
actually four of the 5. The first 4 of the 5 games were at home.
Right.
So Chicago comes in, Minnesota comes in. Those are 2 pretty bad teams. Then they come, at least right now. Then they beat the Predators in what was a really good game in overtime. I watched that game, 2-1. That was like a classic playoff game, and they looked like a team that was getting confidence. Their 4th win, and then, of course, on November 12th they beat Edmonton, and that was 6-3, and that was big because Edmonton, like we talked about, they're the best team in the NHL. And then we get on to Anaheim. They go on the road to Anaheim, who is overrated right now. Be honest.
They are. I agree.
But they're playing well and they're doing good things, and they win. So they've got 5 games in a row. The next game, by the way, at home against Detroit. So that's 6 in a row. Then at home against Edmonton.
In a row.
Well, it could be, and then they go to Vegas. And then they go.
Great. Evander Kane going back to Vegas. Will he be?
I was going to do the rest of the season for the Sharks if you're okay with that.
Yeah, will Evander Kane stop at the Cosmopolitan with a $500,000 check?
I do want to say, hold on, because I want to say I think the game against Minnesota was a 1-goal game.
It was,
and they've been playing. That Devin Dubnyk has been playing really great hockey. Yesterday, the only reason the Coyotes had a 1-goal game is because he had a giveaway that he literally passed right to a Coyotes player and put it right in the net. And it was Connor Garland. They outplayed the Coyotes for a complete game. And so that's got to be something that they got to look at.
That's not easy to do right now. The Coyotes have been very consistent. So
by the way, I think Esmir had the correct call there. He said that was a cardigan on Dubas, and it may have been Cardigan Thursday, and that's the reason why.
Is that a Toronto thing? Cardigan Thursday?
No,
I'm sure it is. It makes total sense if it would be.
It didn't have big buttons like a cardigan, though.
But see, the main focus there, and we have to mention this. The Leafs are struggling right now. They had a team meeting yesterday. They canceled practice.
Yep.
They got some bad news today because on top of Mitch Marner being hurt, Alex Kerfoot last week had apparently in a game against the Kings had taken some facial fractures, dental fractures, and he played with them the last couple games. He's out indefinitely. He had surgery on, I don't know, some sort of dental surgery, and they said indefinitely. So it had to be something more serious than a root canal or a tooth replacement. So now they're without him. They're without Marner. That puts Spezza back in the lineup. I know somebody in the chat was saying, "Well, now it's Jeremy Bracco's chance." They're not. They called up Nick Patan.
There you go.
I think tonight Rick St. Croix is playing, right, Mike? Is that true? Is Rick St. Croix the goalie tonight? For the Leafs?
Rick St. Croix.
Yeah, Rick St. Croix. Come on, remember him?
Doug Favell.
What?
Doug Favell.
Yeah, Doug Favell. There you go.
No, Rick St. Croix played for the Leafs.
Yeah, I know. So did Doug Favell.
I know. I was trying to think of the worst goalies of all time for the Leafs, and
Kurt Ridley, Vincent Tremblay.
Don Edwards was pretty terrible for the Leafs.
No.
He was for the Leafs. He was bad.
He was bad, but he wasn't that bad.
It's a long list.
You want to hear what he did for the Leafs? Right for this,
Tom Barratt.
He only played 38 games for the Leafs. He went 12-23 with a 4.78 goals against average.
Look up Vincent.
And 832 save percentage.
Look up Vincent Tremblay.
Vincent Tremblay, yeah, okay, I got that. Jim Rutherford actually was terrible for the Leafs too. I was looking up they had some goalies that were pretty good other places that were terrible. Vincent Tremblay, all right, ready for Vincent Tremblay? Played 40 games, was 10, 18, and 8, which is not as bad as the last one. 452 goals against average.
There you go. Peter Ing, somebody said it. Best
Peter Ing. Yeah. It's funny. So I was trying to think of them, and it's funny because I'll give you the goalies that were all these goalies were good other places. Ready for this?
Peter Ing wasn't.
Really interesting. Okay, so Ron Lowe, no. Ron Lowe was not very good.
I have to tell a brief Peter Ing story. A couple of years ago, I'm up for a Leaf game, and they sometimes will have fans in the crowd for practices. They'll have Babcock Shanahan talking to them, and somebody was talking to the crowd was wearing a Peter Ing jersey.
That's awesome.
Who the hell is wearing a Peter Ing?
I totally respect my wife when she goes to a game wears an Adam Burt jersey.
Well, let me finish the punchline. It was Peter Ing who was wearing. Nobody else would wear the jersey.
It was actually Peter Ing?
It was actually Peter Ing.
That's amazing. All right, so these goalies played for other teams and were good, but were terrible for the Leafs. Don Beaupre.
Yeah, that was after he played for Minnesota.
No, these are all after. Vesa Toskala.
Well, please.
He was really good in San Jose. Grant Fuhr. Again.
Yes, but they traded him for Dave Andrechuk, Darren Pupa, and a first-round pick, so thank you very much.
It's weird because these guys always the same thing. Bunny Larocque, who was good in Montreal.
He was terrible.
Terrible. Rick St. Croix, who was pretty good in Philly and terrible in Toronto.
He had a good strat card.
Yeah, he did. And Jim Rutherford, who, of course, was legendary in Detroit.
Yeah, but his stats sucked in Detroit because Detroit sucked in the 70s.
But he only played 18 games for the Leafs. Want to know how many games he won?
4.
Dead on, man. You're good.
Yeah.
4-10-2 with a 6.12 goals against that. Jim Rutherford, 6. Let's throw that out there. That's pretty good.
Funky Cold Zadine has a good one. Mark Trees LaForest.
Mark Trees LaForest, And it's of the recent goalies that have played for the Toronto Maple Leafs that are terrible, there's one that really stands out. I mean, Tremblay's pretty recent. No, he's not, is he? No,
he's not.
You don't get a chance to be this bad anymore.
No, but Justin Pogue.
Justin Pogue, yeah.
Justin Pogue did some pretty well. He actually, in 7 appearances for the Leafs, 7 appearances, went 1-4-1 with an 8.36 goals against average. That's not possible.
But he won a gold medal in the World Junior.
Yep, Garrett Sparks.
Hutchinson. But who is playing tonight? Tonight they're playing Boston. They're not going to go back to their backup again because they're afraid.
No, but Kaskisuo, Casimir Kaskisuo, who's their backup, will make his first NHL start against Pittsburgh tomorrow.
All right, I give them a little bit of credit there because they could have run away from the Bruins again, but they didn't. They're going to go with I like that.
No, they always go with Anderson in the first of back-to-backs. That's one of the flaws in Babcock. It's like
how many goals until they take out Kaskisuo?
It's so hard. Of all the things you have as your job,
they'll throw them to the wolves. They will not put They will not do what Quinn did yesterday. They will not put Anderson in relief cold to replace Kaskisuo. They'll let Kaskisuo get basically murdered.
Okay.
If it's 8-1, he's going to stay in for all 8.
I got this letter from one of these scouts. He said, in 1972, the Leafs lost Bernie Parent to the WHA, and Jacques Plante was in his twilight careers. The goaltending depth chart was so thin that they turned to Ron Lowe, who was a 22-year-old at the time. He went 12-28. Next season, he was taken in the expansion draft.
This is the weirdest.
The Capitals.
This is the weirdest thing. Bernie Parent was traded to Toronto for Doug Favell, and then after he came back from the WHA and refused to play for Harold Ballard, he was traded to Philadelphia for Doug Favell.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, definitely. And that, of course, I have a Doug Favell Philadelphia Firebirds jersey. I want to say no. I have a Doug Favell Colorado Rockies jersey. That's what I have.
I know was the Boston Bruins guy to start it all off.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, Ray Krause, another one who was pretty good someplace else and not very good in Toronto. There's a lot of good ones.
Yeah, but he played 72 games for the Leafs. That's how.
Let's not start going. Remember when with bad goalies?
Yeah. It's just having fun. Okay, so there's an amazing stat I want to give you before we get out of here. We do have to get out of here. All right. Remember last year? Like we had to combine more assists than Patrick Laine in the NHL, like the three of us, for a while. 20 games this year. Laine leads the Jets in assists.
That's crazy.
With 14 in 18 games.
Right.
That's impressive. I mean, that's a huge turnaround for him. And when you think about it, that's an amazing thing. And then finally, I want to get into Peugeot because we've been talking about him a lot in rumors. I think the Penguins are making a play big time.
Yeah, Russ. I got it wrong. He is a UFA, and they were talking about it last night on on TSN's Insider Trading, and they said there has been no talk, none between Corey and.
Well, maybe he'll be a rental and come back. I mean, I know he likes it there, but yeah.
Yeah, but any UFA that's not nailed down gets traded there. That's their model.
It's true, but it doesn't mean he wouldn't come back.
Oh no, I think so.
Well, I think once you're traded, though, that's such that you just don't know.
It's true. I mean, look,
that organization is such
Ottawa to Pittsburgh and have any kind of success in Pittsburgh, you're not going back. I get it.
That organization is such a cluster right now that even if you like going there, you telling me. I mean, I'm sure Ryan Dzingel liked playing there, but he didn't go back. He went to Carolina.
No, but
but this guy Peugeot, who's like considerably usually like a 10 to 20 goal scorer, in there. The fact he's like a point a game guy right now, pretty much, is it kind of piss you off when a guy does that when they're going to be a UFA and you think to yourself, man, oh man, like come on, like you're an NHL player. Is this just because you're up for a contract? I can't help but think that way.
Every sport does it.
I know, but it's like it really is frustrating to it's got to be frustrating for people out there who aren't making the NHL or whatever, and they're sitting there saying, one
of the most infuriating things when the Leafs signed Jason Blake. Jason Blake scored 40 goals in his walk year when he played for the Islanders, and he never came close to that. Never even came close to that again. You're
right. I mean, and Peugeot over the years. I mean, it's funny because I don't watch Ottawa all that much. Whenever I watch Ottawa, I've always been kind of impressed. He does have skill. You can see like he's got it to him.
He's a effective player.
But he's more known for being a really great defensive forward. He gets shorthanded goals.
Yeah.
He's in the league. He's led the league before in shorthanded goals. But I just looked up his shooting percentage. It's 24.4.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. Finally, the last stat I have is that last night, this is the Lightning had 4 goals before the Rangers had a shot last night.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's something you don't see very often.
Actually, I'll tell you one other thing you don't see very often.
Yeah.
Where the opening face-off in Tampa, they had Chris Kreider and Ryan McDonough take the face-off. So then they had it with a couple of veterans. There was like a 90-something-year-old guy who was a World War II veteran. It was great. They shook their hands, and then they did like the bro shake, Kreider and McDonough, because they were longtime teammates.
Nice, for sure. Yeah, no, they're good friends.
And not the fist pump, Mike, the bro shake, where you do like the knuckles thing.
Oh, yeah.
You don't see that in opening face-offs.
Yeah, that's what I do whenever I see Russ in the press box.
I try and do the fist pump with that because I never know where he's been. But
I'm a real fan of the bop thing.
Oh yeah.
If I'm going to say my favorite greeting, it would be that. That's what I do in hockey. But
I just push Russ out of the way so I can get to his Swedish fish.
All right. Well, this is deteriorated into nonsense even quicker than I had planned. So let's get out of here and have a great weekend, folks. Remember, without the buzz, it is